In the heart of Sydney's quiet suburbs, the Harrisons were the kind of family everyone envied. Loving parents, two bright kids, a perfect home. But one winter night, neighbors heard a single gunshot, and by sunrise, the Harrisons were gone. No break-ins, no robbery, just a blood stain on the carpet and a missing family fortune. Now police say it wasn't a stranger, it was someone sitting at that very dinner table. The perfect family. Birchwood Lane was the kind of street that made real estate agents smile. Neat lawns, white fences, and magpies warbling in the morning sun. Everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever really happened there. At least, not until the Harrisons moved in. Mark Harrison was a financial advisor, clean-cut, confident, and charming in a way that made people trust him a little too easily. His wife, Claire, taught music at the local high school. Their two kids, Sophie, 14, and Jake, 11, were polite, quiet, and always home before dark. The Harrisons were the picture of suburban peace. To the neighbors, they were perfect. To the police, 3 weeks later, they were a mystery. It started on a Friday night in June. Cold winds swept across Sydney, rattling the old gum trees that lined the lane. Around 10:30 p.m., Mrs. Elwood from next door heard something. A bang. Not too loud, but sharp enough to make her dog bark like hell. She thought it was just kids with firecrackers. It wasn't. The next morning, the Harrison house was silent. Curtains drawn, no movement. The letterbox overflowed with junk mail, and the silver Mazda in the driveway hadn't moved since Thursday. By Sunday, people started to worry. Claire hadn't shown up for choir practice. The kids missed soccer. And Mark's office called the police after he failed to appear for a major client meeting. When officers arrived, they found the front door locked from the inside. The Discovery Detective Senior Constable Eli Warren was first on scene. Mid-40s, weary eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen too many tidy houses hiding ugly secrets. He knocked twice. No answer. "Break it," he said. The door splintered open. A cold draught swept through the hall. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach, and something metallic beneath it. In the living room, the TV was still on, flickering blue light across the walls. On the floor lay a dark stain, half scrubbed, half soaked into the carpet. No bodies, no blood trails, just absence. Upstairs, Sophie's room looked untouched. Posters of bands, makeup scattered, a school jumper tossed over her bed. Jake's PlayStation still hummed quietly, a paused game waiting for a player who'd never return. Then, in the master bedroom, Eli found something odd. A family photo on the dresser. The Harrisons smiling at the beach. But someone had scratched out Mark's face with a key. The first clue, forensics moved fast. They found traces of gunpowder residue in the kitchen sink, and a single 9mm shell casing wedged under the counter. No weapon, no struggle, no sign of forced entry. But the CCTV footage from a nearby street camera caught something chilling. At 11:04 p.m. Friday night, a dark sedan pulled up to the Harrisons' driveway. 2 minutes later, the porch light flickered twice, then went out. At 11:07, the car reversed out, slow, careful, lights off, and vanished. The number plate? Missing. Bah, the secret account. While the police scoured the house, a warrant uncovered something bigger. Mark Harrison had drained $480,000 from his company's client trust account over 6 months. The money was gone, wired to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands under a name no one recognized. Sea Vale. Was it Claire? Was it someone else? Eli had seen enough marriages rot under secrets, but something about this one didn't fit the pattern. Claire's phone records showed calls to an unknown number. Same time every night, 9:47 p.m. Always 5 minutes. Always ending exactly at 9:52. And the last call? The night before the Harrisons disappeared. Eli closed the file for the night, leaning back in his chair. The wind howled outside the station windows. Something about the scratched photo stayed in his mind. If Mark was the thief, why did someone scratch his face out? And if it was Claire behind the money, why was there gunpowder in the kitchen sink? He didn't know it yet. But the truth about the Harrisons was darker than any suburban nightmare. The collar detective, Eli Warren, sat in the dim glow of his office, the rain outside tapping against the window like restless fingers. The case file lay open before him. The Harrison family, missing, presumed dead. He rubbed his eyes, the same question looping in his head. Open quote. If they're gone, who cleaned the blood? Close quote. The phone trail. The unknown number Claire had been calling every night traced back to a burner phone, purchased at a convenience store in Parramatta 2 months earlier. No ID, no address, paid in cash. Eli ordered a deeper trace through telecom logs. Within hours, a tech officer named Mia sent him a ping location. Open quote, call originated near an industrial park. Old storage units off Windsor Road. Close quote, a chill ran through him. That area was mostly abandoned, just warehouses and truck depots. He'd been there before, 3 years earlier. Same location, a fraud ring takedown, and one name kept popping up back then too. Connor Vale. The name on the account, C. Vale. That was the name tied to the offshore account where Mark's stolen money vanished. Mia cross-checked financial records. Connor Vale, 37. Former IT contractor fired from Harrison Financial Services 2 years ago after clashing with Mark over unethical data handling. He'd disappeared soon after, rumored to be in Bali or Perth. But last month, he'd quietly returned to Sydney. Looks like your guy's back in business, Mia muttered. Eli nodded slowly, and maybe back for revenge. The warehouse. That evening, a storm rolled over the city. Lightning flashed as Eli and his partner, Senior Constable Dana Reed, drove through the empty streets toward the old Windsor warehouses. They stopped outside Unit 12, rusted gate, flickering light, faint sound of a generator humming. Inside, the air was thick with oil and dust. Boxes everywhere, old computer parts, scattered papers. On the far table, a family photo of the Harrisons, same one from their house. But this time, all their faces were scratched out. Dana whispered, bloody hell. Eli's torch beam caught something else. A laptop, still warm, screen glowing with offshore transaction logs. Transfers, dates, passwords, and the last one made 3 days after the family vanished, meaning someone was still alive or someone else had access to Mark's accounts. A message left behind. On the laptop desktop was a folder named for Eli. He opened it. Inside, a single video file. Timestamp 2 nights ago. The video started shaky. Claire Harrison's face appeared, pale and terrified, eyes darting around like she was being watched. She whispered, if you're seeing this, he found us. Please, Eli, it's not what you think. Mark isn't who he says he is. He lied to all of us. Don't trust. The feed cut to static. Dana's jaw tightened. He? You think that's Vale? Eli shook his head. No, she wasn't scared of a stranger. She was scared of someone close. Back at the Harrison house, forensics found something new in Jake's bedroom. A drawing, crayons on paper, showing 4 stick figures, Mum, Dad, Sophie, and Jake. But behind them, a 5th figure stood in black, holding a gun. Written above it in shaky handwriting, open quote, the man who visits when Dad's gone. Close quote. Jake must have seen something, but no neighbors reported a visitor that night. Then Eli checked the back door camera, the one no one thought to look at earlier. The footage showed a man arriving just before 11 p.m., not Vale, not a stranger. It was Mark Harrison himself. The twist, Mark had come home late after draining his company's accounts. He wasn't running from the police. He was running from someone else. Phone records showed Claire's nightly calls weren't to an affair. They were warnings. She'd discovered Mark's fraud, begged him to come clean. But he refused, saying, they'll kill us if we talk. Who were they? Eli looked at the account trail again. Cayman Islands, encrypted transfers, each linked to shell companies based in Perth, run by Harrison Financial Group's silent investors, a network laundering millions through dummy charities. Mark hadn't been the mastermind. He'd been the fall guy. And now his family was caught in the middle. The van at 3:12 a.m., patrol spotted a burnt-out van 20 kilometers north of Sydney, near the Hawkesbury River. Inside were children's clothes, a handbag, and a charred phone, later identified as Claire's. The VIN number matched the dark sedan seen leaving Birchwood Lane. But no bodies, no traces of DNA, just a half-melted keyring with a single engraved letter, V. Eli stared at it in the evidence bag. Vale, but something in his gut said no. This wasn't Vale's work. This was bigger, cleaner. Someone covering a trail that led far beyond one missing family. Reopen his company files, Eli told Mia. Check every client account Mark handled in the last 12 months. I want to know who he was working for. As dawn crept across Sydney, Eli stepped outside the station, the smell of wet asphalt heavy in the air. Somewhere out there, the Harrisons, or what was left of them, were tangled in a web that reached far higher than a suburban crime scene. He lit a cigarette, eyes fixed on the horizon. He'd been chasing ghosts before, but this one had a family's blood on its hands. The man behind the mirror. The next morning broke cold and gray. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days, as if Sydney itself was washing away the truth. Detective Eli Warren stood by his office window, coffee going cold, staring at the latest forensic report on the Harrisons. No bodies, no footprints, but traces of engine oil and fiberglass dust found on the Harrison garage floor, the kind used in boat repairs. Boat? Dana asked, glancing over his shoulder. Eli nodded slowly. Yeah, and guess who used to have one? The forgotten boat records showed that Mark Harrison owned a small motorboat, the Silver Finch, moored at a private dock on the Hawkesbury River. But when officers checked the site, the boat was gone. In its place, they found fresh tire tracks, cigarette butts, and a piece of torn plastic with the logo of Blue Horizon Marinas, a private storage yard 2 hours up the coast. Either he took them by water, Eli muttered, or someone took him. Claire's last note. While searching the Harrison house again, Dana found something tucked behind the family piano, a folded piece of sheet music. Hidden between the pages was a note, handwritten in Claire's neat cursive. Open quote, "If anything happens, tell Eli to look at Birchfield Trust. He'll know." Close quote. Birchfield Trust. Eli froze when he read it. That name hadn't crossed his desk in years. Birchfield was a shadow fund, a money laundering front exposed 5 years ago, the same case that nearly cost Eli his badge. He'd testified against several businessmen, one of whom was rumored to have ties with the Harrison firm. That man's name? Richard Vale, Connor Vale's older brother. The connection. The Vale brothers had always been trouble, clever, ruthless, and untouchable. Richard was the investor with friends in Parliament, Connor was the hacker who covered the digital trail. Together, they'd built empires out of false donations and vanished accounts. Mark Harrison had worked for them once, handling high-risk clients who wanted their money invisible. When the investigation started closing in, Mark flipped, giving evidence quietly in exchange for immunity. That's why Eli remembered him. But the deal had gone bad. Birchfield collapsed. The Vales walked free, and Mark went back to his quiet family life, pretending it never happened. Until now. The marina by sunset, Eli and Dana reached Blue Horizon Marinas, tucked along the coast near Gosford. The place was silent, the Tans, only the creak of mooring ropes and the cry of seagulls echoing off the water. A night guard led them to a locked shed. Inside, the Silver Finch. The boat's seats were torn, the cabin reeking of bleach. In the storage compartment, they found rope fibers, blood traces, and a child's sneaker. Dana swallowed hard. This was the transport. They were taken by river. Eli's voice was low. No, not all of them. Look. In the glove box was a passport, Mark Harrison's. Still there, still clean. The visitor's CCTV footage from the marina showed another figure boarding the boat 2 nights before the family vanished. The timestamp, 9:45 p.m., the exact time Claire had made her nightly call. The footage was grainy, but the face was clear enough. Connor Vale. He'd been meeting Claire. And he wasn't threatening her. She was helping him. The deal. Back at headquarters, Mia decrypted a hidden folder from the laptop found at the warehouse. Inside were fragments of email drafts between Claire and Connor. Open quote, "Mark's planning to move the money again. He's lying about who's after us. If you can get Sophie and Jake somewhere safe, I'll give you the location of the account. Don't let him take the boat. Don't trust him." Close quote. Claire wasn't the victim. She was trying to save her kids. But from who? The revelation. That night, Eli drove back to Birchwood Lane. The street was silent, empty. Every house dark except for the flicker of a TV somewhere down the road. He parked outside the Harrison home, letting the rain patter on the windscreen. He couldn't shake the memory of Claire's message. Open quote, "He found us." Close quote. Inside the house, he paced through each room again. Slower this time. Something felt wrong. The bloodstain in the lounge had been cleaned too neatly, too deliberately. Then he noticed it. Faint boot marks leading from the kitchen to the garage. Not Mark's size. Bigger. He followed them to the back wall, where a stack of boxes hid a false panel. Behind it, a hidden safe. It had already been opened. Inside was a single USB drive. Labeled EW, his initials. Eli plugged it into his laptop right there. A single file opened, a video dated 1 week before the murders. Video log. Mark looked tired, eyes bloodshot. He spoke in a whisper. Open quote, Detective Warren, if you're seeing this, I've run out of time. They're watching everything. My emails, my calls, even Claire's movements. Birchfield isn't gone. It's alive. Richard Vale runs it now under a new name, South Cross Holdings. I tried to pull out, but he knows about you, Eli. About what you covered in 2018. If he goes down, you go with him. I don't know if Claire's part of it or just scared, but if you ever find this, protect my kids. They're innocent. Whatever happens, don't trust anyone from HQ. Close quote. The screen went black. The silence breaks. Eli sat frozen, heart pounding. He'd buried the 2018 Birchfield file to protect an informant and himself when the corruption scandal threatened to burn half the force. Only a handful of people knew about it. Now someone had resurrected that secret. Dana walked in quietly. You all right? Eli turned the laptop toward her. We've been chasing the wrong ghost. Mark wasn't hiding from Vale, he was hiding from us. Dana frowned. Meaning someone inside the department's cleaning up the past, starting with everyone who knew Birchfield. The call at 2:14 a.m., Eli's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, shaky, whispering. Open quote, Detective Warren, it's Sophie. You have to help us. Mum's hurt. Dad said not to trust, close quote. The line cut. Static. Then silence. Eli froze. Trace that call, he barked to Mia over the radio. Within seconds, coordinates flashed on the screen. South Cross Wharf, private docks, owned by Richard Vale. Eli grabbed his coat, adrenaline flooding his chest. Dana caught up, gun holstered. You think they're alive? He nodded once. If Sophie called, they're still out there. Outside, the storm was breaking. Lightning cracked across the dark ocean as they raced toward the wharf, the past catching up, every secret about to surface. Because in Sydney, under the calm veneer of family life and suburban smiles, the water was about to reveal what everyone had tried to hide. The Wharf of Lies. The rain had turned to mist by the time Detective Eli Warren reached South Cross Wharf. The pier stretched into the black water, lights flickering through the fog like dying embers. Somewhere out there, beneath the sound of waves, was the truth, and maybe the Harrisons. Dana parked the unmarked car behind a stack of containers. Thermal drone shows heat signatures, she said. 2 figures near the main warehouse. One smaller, could be a kid. Eli's chest tightened. Sophie? They moved quietly, guns drawn, their boots whispering over the wet timber. The sea wind stung with salt and diesel. Then a sound, a low clang, metal on metal. Someone was moving inside. The warehouse, they slipped in through a side door. The air smelled of petrol and old ropes. Stacked crates formed narrow corridors of shadows. A single bulb swung overhead, creaking. Then, a voice. Open quote, put it down, Sophie. Close quote, Eli froze. Mark Harrison stood at the far end, a pistol shaking in his hand. His shirt was stained, his eyes hollow. Beside him, Sophie. Alive, pale, trembling, clutching a phone. Mark! Eli called out, stepping slowly into the light. It's over. You don't need to do this. Mark's laugh cracked, half sob, half madness. Open quote. Over? You think any of this is over? You don't know who you're working for, detective. Close quote. Hash thought, the confession. Mark lowered the gun a little, his breeze ragged. Open quote. Richard Vale owns half your department, Eli. He's been feeding you leads, covering his own trail. The missing families, the accidents, the fires, all staged to bury Birchfield's mess. Claire found the files. She wanted to go to the press. Close quote. Dana's grip tightened on her weapon. Where is she, Mark? Where's Claire? Mark's eyes flickered toward the far corner. Wrapped in a blanket, motionless. Claire Harrison. Eli rushed forward, pulse thundering. She was alive, barely, a wound across her shoulder, bandaged with a torn towel. She tried to stop them, Mark whispered. They came for the kids. I got Sophie out, but Jake, they took him. Who? Eli demanded. Mark's face twisted. Your people. The truth in uniform. Before Eli could speak, the warehouse door burst open. Flashlights, voices. Open quote. Armed police. Drop your weapons. Close quote. Uniformed officers flooded in, but Eli didn't recognize the faces. No badges visible. No sirens outside. The lead man stepped forward. Inspector Colin Havers, Internal Affairs. Eli's old supervisor. Step aside, Warren, Havers ordered coldly. You've interfered enough. Eli's hand hovered near his holster. You're working with Vale, aren't you? A thin smile. Working for justice. Something you lost sight of years ago. Then, gunfire. Dana ducked behind a crate. Bullets ripped through wood. Mark grabbed Sophie and ran toward the back exit. Eli returned fire, the muzzle flash lighting the fog. It wasn't a police operation. It was a cleanup. The escape smoke filled the warehouse. Dana yelled, "Go! I'll cover you!" Eli sprinted after Mark and Sophie through a maze of crates, the sound of boots pounding behind them. They burst through a rear door onto the dock. Waves crashed against the pylons, wind whipping hard. "The boat!" Mark shouted, pointing to a small vessel tied to the pier. The Silver Finch, somehow repaired, waiting. They climbed aboard just as a spotlight flared from the shore. "Stop! You're under arrest!" A voice bellowed through a megaphone. Eli shoved off, engine roaring. Bullets splashed into the water like angry raindrops. The boat tore through the mist toward the open sea. The confession at sea. When the lights of Sydney faded behind them, Mark collapsed beside the wheel, coughing hard. Blood stained his sleeve. Sophie clung to her mother's hand, whispering, "Mum, it's okay. We're safe now." But Claire just looked at Eli. "You shouldn't have come," she said weakly. "They'll never stop. Not after this." "Then tell me," Eli demanded, voice shaking. "Tell me everything." Claire's eyes filled with tears. Open quote, "It started with a donation scheme. Birchfield paid politicians to look the other way. Mark tried to expose it, but Richard Vale made him take the fall. When I found the old files, they threatened the kids. Connor tried to help us hide, but they killed him too." Close quote. "Connor's dead?" Eli asked. Claire nodded slowly. "He sent us to that warehouse for safety. But Mark, he lied about where the money was. He wanted to trade it for our lives." Mark turned away, shame flickering across his face. Open quote, "I thought I could buy our freedom," he muttered. "But Vale doesn't bargain. He cleans house." Close quote. The betrayal before Eli could answer, the boat's radio crackled to life. Open quote, "Detective Warren, this is Inspector Havers. You can't run forever. Vale wants the file you took, the one Mark gave you. Hand it over, and maybe the girl lives." Close quote. Eli stared at the USB drive in his pocket, the one labeled EW, the proof of everything. "Don't listen," Claire gasped. "He'll kill us anyway." Eli grabbed the radio. "You'll get nothing from me." Havers' reply came cold and measured. Open quote, "You already gave us everything we needed. Check your phone." Close quote. Eli looked down. A message flashed across his screen. Data uploaded successfully. The USB drive in his hand was blinking. Hacked remotely. Bloody hell. Dana's voice suddenly came through the comms, faint but panicked. Open quote, "Eli, it's a trap. The files were booby-trapped. They've traced your location. Get off the boat now." Close quote. The explosion. Eli barely had time to shout before the explosion ripped through the deck. The blast threw him into the freezing black water, the world spinning in white fire and smoke. He surfaced coughing, waves slamming against him. The boat was in flames, pieces burning as they drifted away. He screamed their names. "Mark, Claire, Sophie." No answer, just the hiss of burning fuel. A beam of light cut through the fog, a helicopter circling above himself. "You're under arrest for obstruction and treason." Close quote. He dove beneath the surface before they could spot him again. The survivor hours later, Eli crawled onto a remote beach north of Sydney, soaked, bleeding, but alive. He staggered to the dunes, collapsed beside a locket. Inside, a photo of Sophie and Jake. On the back, scratched in tiny letters, open quote, "Find Jake. He's the key." Close quote. Eli clenched his fist around it, eyes burning with rage. Somewhere out there, the younger Harrison was still alive. And if Jake had been taken by Val's men, then the conspiracy wasn't finished. It was evolving. He swore under his breath, open quote, "I'll burn it all down. Every last one of them." The boy who knew too much. The morning tide rolled gray and cold over the sand as Detective Eli Warren limped along the shoreline. Every muscle burned, his ribs screamed with every breath, but he kept walking. Behind him, the wreck of the Silver Finch still smoldered offshore, smoke twisting into the pale sky like a ghost refusing to leave. He was a wanted man now. The news would spin it by dawn. Open quote, "Detective involved in murder and fraud. Police warn he may be armed and dangerous." Close quote. He almost laughed. They always find a villain when they need one. But all he cared about now was Jake Harrison, the boy still out there. The boy everyone else had forgotten. The hunt begins. He found shelter in an old fisherman's shack along the coast. Rusted tins, damp blankets, a single working radio. While patching a gash on his shoulder, he tuned the dial until the static broke. Open quote. Police confirm 3 presumed dead after a marina explosion late last night. Detective Eli Warren remains missing. Sources allege connections between Harrison Financial and a criminal network known as South Cross Holdings. Close quote. Eli clenched his jaw. South Cross wasn't a network. It was a system. Politicians, bankers, and cops all tied together by one invisible string, Richard Vale. And now they'd killed to keep that secret buried. He unrolled the burnt edge of the photo locket he'd found. Sophie and Jake smiling on a beach. Beneath Jake's shirt collar, faintly visible even in the photo, was something odd. A necklace with a silver key. A memory flickered. Claire once mentioning that Jake never went anywhere without his lucky key. Maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was the reason they took him. Contact from the shadows. As dusk settled, a phone buzzed inside the shack. Eli froze. He didn't have a phone. The sound came from under the old wooden table, a burner device wrapped in cloth. He answered cautiously. Open quote. Eli Warren? Close quote. A woman's voice. Calm, measured, with a trace of accent. Open quote. My name is Dr. Lena Morell. I worked with Mark Harrison. We were part of the same witness protection program. Close quote. Eli's pulse kicked. Witness protection? You mean? Open quote. Yes, the Harrisons were under federal watch, but when the funding shifted to South Cross, our files disappeared. I've been hiding ever since. Close quote. Where's the boy? Eli demanded. Open quote. Jake's alive. I have proof, but you'll need to see it yourself. Tomorrow. 9 p.m., Old Signal Tower, Palmer's Point. Close quote. Before he could respond, the line went dead. Palmer's Point. By the next night, the rain had returned, sheets of it slicing through the beam of Eli's flashlight as he climbed the narrow road to Palmer's Point. The old signal tower loomed above the cliffs, abandoned since the 90s, windows boarded up and roof half gone. Inside, he found her. Dr. Lena Morell, late 40s, trench coat soaked, laptop open on a crate. Her eyes were sharp, tired, and cautious. You look worse than your file photo, she said flatly. Hard week, Eli replied. She turned the laptop toward him. On screen, security footage, time-stamped 48 hours ago, showed a van pulling into a private airstrip outside Sydney. 2 men dragged a small boy, head-covered, struggling. Jake Harrison, alive. Where was this? Eli demanded. Ravensfield Air Hangar. South Cross owns it under a shell company. They're transferring the kid offshore, somewhere called Project Northlight. What's Northlight? Eli asked. Lena hesitated. A private research site in Darwin. Government contracts. They use children of whistleblowers to control testimony. If the parents talk, the kids disappear. Eli's stomach turned cold. So they're holding him as leverage. She nodded grimly. And if they move him, you'll never find him again. The betrayal inside. A noise echoed through the tower, tires crunching on gravel. Lena's eyes went wide. They found us, she hissed. Eli killed the lantern, drew his gun. Shadows flickered through the cracks of the boarded window. Multiple lights, moving fast. Then, a familiar voice boomed through a megaphone. Open quote. Detective Warren. This is Inspector Havers. You're surrounded. Hand over the doctor and step out. Close quote. Lena whispered. How did they? Eli's eyes narrowed. He spotted a small blinking dot under her laptop. A tracker. You led them here, he said quietly. Her face fell. No, I didn't know. They must have planted it on me weeks ago. He didn't have time to think. Flashbang. Shattered glass. The tower erupted in chaos. Eli grabbed Lena, dragging her toward a back staircase as gunfire thundered outside. Bullets cracked the stone. They burst through a side door and sprinted into the storm, mud splattering underfoot. Behind them, the tower went up in flames. The dead end. They hid beneath an old railway bridge until the shooting stopped. Lena clutched her laptop tight, eyes wild. They'll erase everything, she whispered. The files? The witnesses? Jake's next. Eli stared at the horizon, rain streaming down his face. Not if I get to him first. He checked her laptop, half the data corrupted, but one intact file stood out, Northlight Manifest.docx. Inside, flight ID S279, departure Ravensfield Airstrip, destination Darwin, Northlight Facility, passenger tag JH02. Jake Harrison was leaving tomorrow night. The last call. Eli found a payphone near an old roadhouse and dialed the only number he still trusted, Dana Reed's private line. Jesus, Eli, she whispered when she heard his voice. You're supposed to be dead. I need your help. They've got Jake. Flight STH 2719, Ravensfield. I can't do this alone. Silence. Then, open quote, you realize if I help you, I'm finished? You already are, Eli said softly. They just haven't written your headline yet. Close quote. After a pause, she said, meet me at the old quarry in 3 hours. Bring the doctor. Eli smiled faintly. Still covering my back? Always. The storm ahead. They reached the quarry just before dawn. The sky was bruised purple, the first light breaking through storm clouds. Dana was waiting beside a dark ute, engine running, eyes scanning the tree line. When she saw him, she exhaled sharply. You look like hell. Eli grinned weakly. Feel worse. Lena climbed out, clutching a backpack. Everything's backed up on an encrypted drive. If we get to Darwin before they move the kid, we can expose Northlight. Dana nodded, handing Eli a fresh magazine. Then, we don't have long. As they pulled onto the highway, thunder rumbled across the coast. The rain hit hard, like the world trying to warn them to turn back. But there was no turning back anymore. Eli glanced out the window. His reflection ghosted in the glass, the face of a man who'd lost everything except one small promise. Open quote, find Jake. He's the key. Close quote. Somewhere in the dark sky ahead, a private jet was preparing to leave Sydney, carrying a scared 11-year-old boy and the last proof of a crime that could bring a nation to its knees. Eli whispered under his breath, open quote, hold on, kid. I'm coming. Close quote. The ute vanished into the storm, headlights slicing through the rain, the hunted becoming the hunters. The road to Darwin stretched endless beneath the storm. Miles of asphalt, red dust, and silence, broken only by the ute's engine. Eli Warren sat in the passenger seat, staring out at the wet horizon. Every kilometer brought them closer to the truth, and to Jake Harrison. In the back seat, Dr. Lena Morell scrolled through the fragments of encrypted data she'd salvaged from her laptop. Next to her, Dana Reed drove like a soldier on borrowed time, eyes locked forward, jaw tight. Flight STH 2719 departs in 8 hours, Lena said quietly. Once that plane's airborne, he's gone. Eli rubbed the scar on his temple. Then we cut it off before it leaves the ground. The hidden facility. By sundown, they reached Ravensfield Airstrip, a desolate stretch of runway deep in Northern Territory bushland. The place looked abandoned. Hangars covered in rust, windsocks limp against the fading light. But through Eli's binoculars, he spotted it. Movement. Men in black uniforms, a private jet, white with gold trim, and a convoy of SUVs parked near the hangar. Not police, Dana muttered. No, Eli said. South Cross. Private security. They parked the ute half a kilometer away and moved in on foot through the scrub and the rain. Every step crackled under their boots. Lena's hands shook as she clutched her drive. Once we get inside, I can connect to their main terminal and expose everything. Financial trails, recorded calls, all of it. Then we get Jake, Eli said, loading his pistol. No mistakes. Inside the hangar. They reached the side gate just as lightning lit up the airstrip. A single guard paced near the fence, rifle slung lazily. Eli motioned silently. Dana crept up behind the guard, tapped his shoulder and struck. Quick, clean, quiet. The man dropped like a sack. They slipped through the gate and into the hangar's shadow. Inside, the scene froze them. A sterile white chamber lined with computer racks, medical crates, and surveillance monitors. And at the center, a small glass room, its door reinforced. Inside, Jake Harrison, sitting cross-legged on a cot, staring blankly at the floor. Eli's breath caught. There he is. Lena moved to the nearest terminal, plugging in her drive. Lines of code filled the screen. Dana kept watch. We've got 10, maybe 15 minutes before someone notices. The revelation. As the upload began, the monitors flickered to life, and then a voice filled the hangar. Open quote. Detective Warren, you've come a long way for a boy who doesn't even know who you are. Close quote. The voice came from the loudspeakers, smooth, confident. Richard Vale. He stepped from the shadows near the plane, flanked by 2 armed men. Immaculate suit, dry despite the humidity. Eli raised his gun. You killed his parents. Vale smiled. Killed? No, they were liabilities. They knew too much about South Cross and about you. Eli's grip tightened. What are you talking about? Vale nodded toward Jake's cell. Tell him, Doctor. Lena froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Lena? Eli demanded. She looked at him, guilt in her eyes. Jake isn't just a witness. He's your son, Eli. The words hit like a blow. What? Before the Harrisons went into protection, Claire, she came to me. She said she had a child from an undercover officer she'd worked with. At least you were that officer. They hid the boy's identity under the Harrison name. Eli staggered back. The room tilted. Vale's voice cut through the haze. Now you understand why I couldn't let him disappear. The boy carries not just a secret, but bloodline evidence. Genetic access to the South Cross biometric vault. Lena whispered. That's what the key was for. His DNA unlocks their offshore accounts. All hell breaks loose, gunfire erupted. Dana fired first, dropping one of Vale's guards. Eli dove behind a crate, bullets shredding metal. Lena yanked the cable, clutching the drive. Upload complete, she shouted. It's live! Vale snarled and grabbed Jake from the cell, dragging him toward the plane. Jake! Eli shouted, sprinting after them. Dana covered him, returning fire until her magazine clicked empty. Go, Eli! Don't look back! Eli stormed up the jet steps, tackling Vale just as the engines roared. The two men fought in the narrow aisle, fists, elbows, rage. Vale slammed Eli's head against the wall. You think the truth matters? Australia runs on men like me. Eli drove a knife into Vale's side. Then maybe it's time for a change. Vale staggered, blood soaking his shirt, then collapsed against the controls. Sparks flew, alarms screamed. Eli grabbed Jake and leapt from the hatch as the jet exploded into fire, a shockwave flattening the grass. Ha! The aftermath. When Eli came to, the hangar was burning. Dana limped toward him, smoke rising behind her. Lena stood nearby, clutching the drive, tears streaking her soot-covered face. Jake knelt beside Eli, eyes wide. Are you my dad? Eli blinked hard, tears mixing with rain. Yeah, mate, I am. Jake threw his arms around him, sobbing. Mom said you were a hero. Eli held him tight. She was wrong, but I'll try to be. In the distance, sirens, federal agents, news vans, emergency crews. Lena handed Dana the drive. The files are public now. Every name, every offshore account, it's all out there. Dana smirked faintly. Then South Cross is finished. 6 months later, the house on Birchwood Lane was quiet again, but not empty. Eli and Jake stood on the back porch, watching the sunset bleed across the gum trees. The house had been rebuilt, the past buried under fresh paint and new laughter. Jake fiddled with the silver key around his neck. Do you miss Mom? Every day, Eli said softly, but she'd want us to live, not hide. Dana arrived, tossing him a newspaper. Headline, open quote, South Cross executives sentenced. The Northlight Papers. Shake Australian government, close quote, she grinned. Looks like your mess made history. Eli smiled faintly. Good, maybe now the quiet houses can stay quiet. Final scene. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He wandered into the living room and found an envelope on the table, marked in his father's handwriting, for when you're ready. Inside was a single photo, Eli, Claire, and baby Jake, years ago, smiling at a beach in Byron Bay, and behind it, a note. Open quote, the truth can destroy, but sometimes it sets us free, Dad. Close quote, Jake smiled, tucking the photo under his pillow. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Faint, distant, but harmless this time. For the first time in years, the quiet house on Birchwood Lane was truly at peace. The end.